بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I hope by now you are quite excited and interested about the course Children's Literature. And as I said, it's a very rich one, and it will be more enjoyable and more interesting than the other two courses that we have been together at. This is our first lecture. A piece of advice, a golden piece of advice, when you start a new course or a new topic or a new article, just like when you meet new people, what happens when you meet new people for the first time, a new student, a new whoever, what happens logically and naturally is that the two parties, the two people meeting each other for the first time, they introduce themselves to each other. They talk about themselves. This is X and this is Z. X works as such and Z works as such and such. The same thing has to be applied when you study, when you move into a new course. You have to study definitions. You have to know what you are going to do. You have to set things right. You have to specify the kind of information, the kind of approach, the kind of methodology, the kind of material, the kind of terminology that will be used so that when you study the novel or when you study the course later on, you will know what you are talking about and you will know what the teacher is talking about. And that is why today's lecture, the first lecture in the course actually, as I'm saying here, will be devoted to definitions, warm-up. It's a warm-up for the whole course. And if you follow this slide, you will see a summary of what I have just said now. Before we talk about the nature and characteristics of children's literature, let us try to define the two terms. The two terms, what are they? In children's literature, we have two terms, children and literature. For people specializing in sociology or anthropology or the humanities in general or even in medicine, there are lots of different definitions for the word child. We'll take the most important and appropriate ones for us. And also literature as a word, as a concept, has lots of meanings, and we will select the most appropriate ones, and then we will merge the two definitions together in what is recognized as children's literature. So in this lecture, inshallah, we will be interested in definitions. That will help us a lot about the nature of the genre and to be specific about this interesting and comparatively new field of study. As you will know in the second lecture, it is not very new. Actually, it began very early in history, but the problem is in developments. The problem was in how people looked at it, and that piece of information will be highlighted more and more later, inshallah. So definitions, ready? So first of all, what is meant by the word genre, which appears here in this slide? We had it more than once in children's, in The Rise of the Novel and in the modern novel. What is genre? Before you move to the next slide, you have to know what is genre. You should make use of the information that you get in one course in order to benefit in the next course. Here, what is meant by genre? Does it mean food? Does it mean type? Just type? It's a type, but in itself, you cannot say it's a type. No, it's a literary type, a literary kind, a literary form. That's right. That's the right answer. Essential terms. A child, and the plural is children, not children's, no, children. We say children's literature, the possessive, the literature belonging to children. It's generally a human being, a human. A child is not it. It is not an inanimate object. A child is a living organism. A child is a human being between the stages of birth and puberty. That is to say adolescence. That is to say maturity. So from day 0 until 18, this is the child, according to most definitions. Some other scholars and critics talk about the child as the fetus. The fetus is that small thing in the womb of the pregnant woman. That's a child for some people, you know. And it has lots of other definitions, like the children of Egypt, for example, the children, or the children of Mr. X, the children of Mr. Z. The children here could be grown-up people. I mean, it could refer to people who are 30 years old or 40 years old, the children of X and Z. But we are going to look only at this definition, a human being between the stages of birth and puberty. That's it. Just be interested in that. But I have made sure that I give you other aspects of the word itself, so you understand and be prepared. Question here. A child means any human being between birth and puberty. This means that the child is any person, could be a child or a human being or a mature person. A mature person, no. Mature person, that is to say, someone who has a big mind, grown up, over 20, over 30, but we are dealing here with a human being. According to the explanation in red that I have provided you with, generally a human being between the stages of birth and puberty. So the child is a human being. And of course, for people for whom this is the first time to see me as their teacher, the questions like this that you find in the slides every now and then are just sample questions. That is to say, they are examples. That is to say, in the final exam, inshallah, in the assignments, you will find similar things. It doesn't mean that the whole exam will be built on this. These are just examples that guide you or that show you how the final exam will feel like, inshallah. I make sure that every lecture and every time we meet, I give you a number of questions that will help you. And as you notice, the questions are quite easy, and all of them, almost all of them, are answered. Literature. I did talk about literature before, and since we are defining the terms, we have defined the word children and or child. Now it is our job to define the word literature. First of all, it comes from the word litterae, and that word is Latin. It is not English. The original word is not English, it is Latin. So it comes from the Latin language. There will be a question about that. First of all, it means the art of written work. What is literature? The basic, direct, simplest meaning for the word literature is the art of written work. The word literature literally, simply means things made from letters. This is a letter, 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 a letter, a letter, a letter, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. Those are letters. So the original meaning of the word literature comes from letters. And that is why letters in general are called, if you say letters and look at the word in the dictionary, you will find very interesting meanings. Number one, letters, the letter that you send to your friend and that you receive from your friends or from people. Those are letters, right? The letter that you use in order to write. And another meaning in which we are interested is letters, that is to say literature. Al-adab, literatures in general. This is called letters. It means literature. What about the word man of letters? A man of letters is a writer, an author, someone who writes literature, someone who writes letters. Do you understand? Interesting, isn't it? And then a question. In the field of literature, the word letters means. What does it mean? Sounds, linguistics, works of art. Works of art, indeed. So works of art is the answer. A man of letters is the teacher of phonetics, the one who sells letters, an author or writer of creative works. The last answer is correct. Question also, the word literature is originally, is it Arabic or English or Italian or Latin? It's Latin. More definitions. You will see that literature can be defined in a number of ways, not just the one that you have read. One meaning of literature is that in a field of knowledge like psychology or medicine or architecture or agriculture, the books that have been written, the studies, the articles, everything that has been written about that science or about that field of knowledge is called literature. And in this case, it doesn't mean, in Arabic, it doesn't mean adab. No, it means at-turath. All that has been written, all previous studies. Do you understand? But in the field, in our field of study, which is children's literature, we are not interested in that meaning. We are just interested in writings distinguished for beauty or of style or expression as poetry, essays, or history, in distinction from scientific treatises and works which contain positive knowledge or bestsellers. Anyway, so literature is writings distinguished for beauty of style or expression, like poetry, essay, history, and so on. We'll talk about that later. That's one of the definitions of literature. The word literature has one meaning only. Is that true? Of course not. It has more than one meaning, as I said, previous studies or beautiful works of art. Literature may consist of texts based on factual information. In literature, that is to say children's literature, you expect the writer to talk about facts, okay? But you also expect the writer to deal with the imagination, not just facts, but also the imagination. Literature can be classified according to historical periods, genres, and political influences. That piece of information is not very important for us. A question, is there a single definition for children's literature? Is there a single definition for children's literature? Keep that in mind. The answer is not here now. We will answer it later. Okay? Is there one definition for children's literature now? We have talked about the definition of children, and we have also talked about the definition of literature. Now let us come to children's literature. It could be, again, one of the definitions of children's literature is that it is the body of written works and accompanying illustrations produced in order to entertain and instruct young people. Study that definition, please. The body of written works and accompanying illustrations produced in order to entertain and instruct young people is it drama, or is it poetry, or is it children's literature? Children's literature. The genre encompasses a wide range of works, including acknowledged classics of world literature, picture books, and easy-to-read stories written exclusively for children, and fairy tales, lullabies, the songs that mothers sing to children in order to make them sleep, fables, like The Wolf and the Lamb that we studied last semester, folk songs, and other primarily orally transmitted materials, things that are just repeated orally, not written ones. These could also be classified as examples of children's literature. Okay, question. The body of written works, as I said, that was the sentence that we came across in the last slide. The body of written works and accompanying illustrations produced in order to entertain and instruct young people, that's the definition of children's literature. So if I give you that definition and I give you choices, which one of the choices is correct? Is it drama or the novel or children's literature? The underlined sentence is the correct one. We have two sentences here. Children's literature can be all this: fiction and non-fiction books written especially for children from age 0 until age 12. That's not the whole truth. The whole truth is that it is from age 0 until age 18. So children's literature runs is any book or story or poem or play that aims at children, that talks about children who are classified into that age range from age 0, from day 1 until age 18. After 18, a human being is no longer a child. A human being becomes a real, mature, grown-up, responsible human being. Children's literature is good quality trade books for children from birth to adolescence. Adolescence ends at year 18. Children's literature covers the period of time from which period of time? From birth to death. That's a man's whole life. When I say a man, it means a woman's also. From birth till the age of 10 or 12, from 5 to 18, from the age, from birth, from day 1 to the age of 18, and that is the right answer. Despite the recent trend of categorizing children's literature by age, we've done that. We have classified children's literature into categorized it into the literature that talks about children from day 1 until 18 years old. Now, there is a very important question. Will that kind of literature be read and enjoyed and studied only by children also from day 1 until the year 18? No. It may be studied, it may be, and that's why we now, grown-up people, a person like this in front of you is talking about children's literature, is teaching children's literature, and you, very decent, respected, nice people, everywhere, studying and reading, very soon, children's literature. Are we all children? No. We are adults, we are grown-up people, mature people, studying and reading and enjoying children's literature. Then we could say that children's literature can be studied and read by all people. What is children's literature? It's the kind of literature that talks about children from age 0 until age 18, until year 18. You know? But that kind of literature will be studied, will be analyzed, can be appreciated, can be enjoyed, can be read by every man and woman, everywhere, every time, every age. Is that clear? I hope it is. I have explained the whole slide in the few words I have just mentioned now. So children's literature is read only by children. If, Animal Farm can be children's literature, Robinson Crusoe can be children's literature, and all classes of people, grown-up people, old people, have read these. Read by children and adults, or read only at schools, or read only before going to sleep. No. Number 2. Is children's literature to be read and appreciated only by children? Of course not. All classes of people can read, study, and appreciate this genre of literature. Remember the word genre? I said a few minutes ago that genre means literary type. Not just a type, a literary type. That's the final word today about the definitions. So we have talked about the definition of the child, saying that it ranges from day 0, a repetition again, so you can understand everything, until the year 18. We have talked about literature, saying it has different kinds of meanings, but we are only interested in the beautiful works of art that have imagination and that talk now, in our case, about children. What is children's literature? It is the kind of literature that talks about children from age 0 until the year 18, and which can be enjoyed and appreciated by grown-up people. There is no, remember when I told you, keep that question in mind. We are not going to solve it now. We're not going to answer it now. That one. Yes. Is there a single definition for children's literature? That was the question. And we come at the end of the lecture to an answer to this question. There is no single widely accepted definition of children's literature. Lots of definitions. If you go to the field of history, there is a definition for children. Geography, culture, civilization, many fields of study have their own definitions of children, actually. But of course, more or less, those definitions come together at a common starting point. But it can be broadly, and that is why I'm saying broadly, largely defined as anything that children read. But a more useful definition may be anything that children read could be children's literature. But to be specific, it is fiction, poetry, and drama intended for and used by children and young people, a list to which we may add non-fiction. Right? So fiction, poetry, drama intended for and used by children. One critic called Nancy Anderson of the College of Education at the University of South Florida in America has her own definition of children's literature. She says that it is all books written for children. That's a sweeping generalization. All books written for children. But of course, use your mind. If I'm writing a sketchbook for children or a math book for children, is that literature? A science book for children, is that literature? What is literature? We said beautiful works of art that have beautiful language, beautiful imagery, musical, metaphorical, pleasant things, pleasurable things, and many children, and I think most of you know this, many children do not like math. Many children do not like science. They rather prefer to read stories. They prefer fun and adventure. Fun and adventure can only be found in literature. They cannot be found in math books or science books or solid, dry books. Excluding works such as comic books, joke books, cartoon books, and non-fiction works. So she says all books written for children. Is that true? All books written for children can be classified as children's literature? No. But that's one of the scholars or critics who have talked about children's literature and its definition. As I said from the start of the lecture, inshallah today, I said that we are going to cover the first step, the second step. The first step was the introductory lecture. The second step is the key definitions, and the third step will be history. We'll sit in the sitting room and look at how children's literature started and developed until it came to us today in the year 2013. And we have done that already. We have talked about the various definitions of children's literature. Before that, we defined the terms. As I said, start by definitions. That was a very important step. Remember, the child is a human being. but a human being between such and such. And literature comes from Latin, remember. Letters means kinds of literature, different kinds of literature. A man of letters is an author. It's a Latin word, literature. It has different meanings, not just one. Is there a single definition of children's literature? Of course not. More than one definition. That could be a nice definition if you want to decide on one. Revision. Is it only read? Is it only read by children? No, it is read and enjoyed by everyone. And that's it. We come to the end of today's lecture. I hope that you have been given a clear idea about the terminology we are going to use in this course, children and literature and children's literature. Next lecture we will have the history of children's literature, inshallah. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.